Well, good morning, church. Good to see everyone. Hey, if you're a guest or a visitor with us today, we're really excited that you came to worship with us. Last week, we jumped into this brand new series, and it actually created a little bit more buzz than I was expecting. And so that was really exciting to see, especially on Facebook. There was a lot of talk this week. But anyway, we started this series called 7. And the idea is this book that this girl wrote, Jen Hatmaker, about how much stuff we have. She decided in her family, that them as a family, that they had become too comfortable with the American excess, just all the stuff in life. And so she started this mutiny against it. So off that book, we're jumping into what Jesus says about having too much stuff. Last week, we talked about this idea of food. And the challenge is for this last week to see if we can live off just 7 foods. And so that did not look like Meat Lover's Pizza and spaghetti and everything like that. It was chicken and spinach and green beans and whatever your 7 were. And it was not just for the overweight people of the church, all right? This was not just a jump start for the overweight people of Crossroads. This was a challenge for everyone in the church, and a lot of you jumped into it. And so, well done. If this is the last day, yesterday was the last day, now you can eat again. But don't just become a glutton and say, I can eat more than chicken now. Anyway, one of my favorite stories that came from this past week was, and this illustrates that it's not for just the overweight people of our church, because this came from one of the skinniest people in the church. She wrote, over this past week, I did not take the specific 7 challenge because there's 3 people in her household and they all eat very different foods. And so she said, if I'm getting rid of excess, cooking 21 different items is not eliminating the excess. So what she did was she eliminated her 2 comfort foods. Every day she drinks a soda, and every day she eats chocolate. And so she eliminated those from her everyday routine. And every time she would normally drink that or eat that, she would pray for someone in need. And she responded to an email this week just about the 7 challenge. And she said this. She said, since taking this challenge this week, she said, my prayer life is different than when we started. And that's the point. The point is not that we're just getting rid of this stuff just to take this cool challenge. The point is that we reduce the excess and we replace it with Jesus. And so we're going to jump into a new challenge this week. I want to pray for us, and then we'll go. Father in heaven, Father, can we get an opportunity to experience who you are? Father, can you meet us here right now? Father, we desire to know not just who you are, but how to live, but how to walk on this earth and become like you. Jesus, we are thankful that you came down on this earth to show us what we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to live. God, as we jump into another topic that can hit close to home, Father, I pray that we will not become defensive and we won't tell ourselves that I don't need to do that. God, if there is something that's standing in between us and you, Father, for a lot of us in America, it's just stuff. Father, I pray that we will do whatever we need to do to eliminate it. Jesus, we thank you for your grace. It's in your name that we pray this morning. Amen. There's a monster that lives in my house. It's a little bit of a scary monster. And it's not a monster that terrifies my kids. It doesn't live under my children's bed. And actually, if there's a person in the house that is the most terrified when it comes to this monster, it's probably my wife. Because this monster grows. It's not just, in one spot. It's not just one. It's a monster that it grows and it multiplies itself. And it probably lives at your house as well. You know what this monster is? Laundry. The laundry is the monster that lives in my house. All right, and it lives in your house as well. And it just continues to grow. It continues to grow. And it never seems to disappear because just the moment you think, oh, we're caught up on laundry, you were closed all day that day. And so now there's more laundry. All right, and there's some of us that I understand, there's some of us that, we have a good laundry routine, and when the laundry is just cresting the top of the laundry basket, we very delicately carry our laundry downstairs and we put it in the washing machine. Okay, and if that's you, I have great respect for you. And then there's others of us. There's others of us that when the laundry gets, to the top of the basket, we do one of these things. I don't have to take it down yet, there's still some room in the laundry basket, and you're like sitting on your clothes, like, oh no, we don't need to take it down yet. And then, okay, husbands in the room, maybe you can relate, maybe I'm the only guy who does this, you say, hey, I'll help with laundry. And so you take this 78-pound weight, okay, because it's so cram-packed full, downstairs, and you fit it in one load. All right? Yeah, there we go. We're going to help out, so we're going to help do the laundry, okay, but I don't want to do 2 loads. I don't want to have to come down here and check this twice. Okay, so we'll just fit it all in the washing machine the first time. And so we're packing it out. There's no room for water, let alone soap, okay? Okay, so you pack it in the washing machine, and you're like, yeah, I'm done. The machine starts going, it's just going to shake through the drywall because there's so much in there. This monster of laundry, clothes, we have an abundance, an excess of clothes. We have clothes that hang in our closets that we never see. We have clothes that sit in our tubs, in the garage for the someday. We have gold shirts. Listen, I was looking at my closet this week and I found a gold shirt. You know how long ago I bought it? 2.5 years ago. You know how many times I've worn it? None. But I have to have it. Because someday I'm going to fit in that shirt. Probably not, okay? Maybe on a great, I don't know. But we have these clothes. We have clothes everywhere. And we store them away. We keep them for different seasons. And we just have a ton of them. A ton of them. Have you ever walked into a room for an event and you were either overdressed or underdressed? And there's the immediate thought in your head, okay? The immediate thought in your head, like, I need to explain why I'm overdressed or underdressed. And immediately you lose all relationship with Jesus and morals you have, and you're like, I've got to lie. Like, you walk into an event and you're underdressed, and you say, oh, well, I was going to wear my nice dress clothes, but our laundry room just burnt to the ground, and that's where all my nice clothes were, and so I got to get home and take care of that. And I'm like, no, not really. Okay, but you feel like you need to justify the way that you're dressed. You walk into an event, you're overdressed. You're like, oh, we just came from dinner with the president, and so then we came to your event, so that's why we're all dressed up. No, you're really nuts. But we feel this need to justify the way that we're dressed. Why? Why? It's because we live in a society that's defined based on appearance. We define ourselves and we define others by an appearance. And so when we show up at an event and if we're overdressed or underdressed, we feel like we're out of place and we need to answer the question that everyone is asking of, why do they look like that? Because that is related to who we are in the society that we live in. We depend on our appearance to define who we are. I remember one year it was the Sunday, we were leaving for church camp. It was my weekly camp. I was pumped. I loved camp growing up. I got to church that day, and one of the guys that was going with us, his name was Sean. Sean waltzed into church, and he was wearing these nice, perfectly white, brand new K-Swiss sneakers. I was like, Sean, what's up? And he's like, oh, nothing. Has a little bit of a swag, and he's got new shoes on. He says, yeah, I'm ready to go to camp. He's got my new shoes. I was like, yeah, I see that. And immediately, I'll admit there was this jealousy that came on. I was like, he gets new shoes to go to camp. I gotta have new shoes to go to camp, right? New basketball shoes, everything. Because you have to impress at camp, okay? The ladies are there, it's like 7th grade. Okay? And so I went to my mom and I was like, hey Mom, what do you say after church before I leave for camp? What do you say we go get new shoes? And she was like, what do you say we do? She said, you have shoes, you don't need new shoes. I said, no, I really want to go get some. And she said, no, you don't need it. And so that answer wasn't good enough for me, and so I continued to ask and ask and ask and ask and ask. Finally, she said to me, she says, we can go get new shoes, but we're not getting new shoes like we get you at the beginning of the school year. Because we would always go, get new sneakers at the beginning of the year. She said, we can go get you a new pair of shoes, but, we're just going to stop by Payless or something like that, grab some new shoes. Pretty much just, I will justify your want, but I'm not spending much money on it. Okay, that's what it was. And so I went and found these shoes, brought them back, and I was stoked. You know, I'm waltzing into camp, got my new shoes on. And my focus of the week was completely lost because I was focused on what I looked like. Because what I looked like, what I was dependent on was my appearance more than the focus of the week. I focused so much on what I looked like and how I appeared to the people at the camp that I was at that became my focus of the week, and that became what I depended on all week long. I think that there's a lot of us, although not at Kingdom, that oftentimes we feel the same way. We feel like we need to measure up. We feel like we need to look a certain way in a certain setting because we live in a culture that is defined by appearance. You see, we have been trained that who we are is determined by what we look like. And that's why every time a birthday rolls around, I feel like we need to get more clothes. The school's starting, we need to go get more clothes. I have an interview this week. I need to go get new clothes. Hey, it's Christmas time. Hey, it's Easter time. I need to go get new clothes. Hey, it's the third Thursday of the month and I have nothing else going on. So that means I have to go get new clothes, right? And we run our families into debt with credit cards all for the blessed shopping trip. Because our dependence has turned to ourselves. We depend on ourselves to determine who we are. And so we will dress to impress Him. We will do everything and we feel like we need to do to appear a certain way. And when Jesus was teaching His disciples how to be disciples, how to be followers of who He is, He addresses this very issue. If you brought a Bible this morning, go ahead and open up to Matthew chapter 10. Matthew chapter 10. It'll be on the screen behind me. You can look at it on your phone. Matthew chapter 10. Jesus is just getting ready to send out His disciples to go and to teach and preach who He is and what He's about. And as He is sending them out, He lets them know this is what you're going to do and this is how you're going to do it. So Matthew chapter 10, beginning in verse 8, this is what Jesus tells them they're going to do. He says, heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, and drive out demons. Freely you have received, freely give. And so what are these men going to do? They're going to go and they're going to heal people with leprosy. They're going to go raise people from the dead. Okay, they're going to go and heal people who are sick. I mean, Jesus is giving them all of His power, all of His authority to go out into the towns, to go out in the area that He is sending them, and to go and show what He is about. And how are they going to do it? Verse 9. Jesus looks at them and He says, do not take along any gold or silver or copper in your belts. Take no bag for the journey, or extra tunic, or sandals, or a staff. For the worker is worth his keep. Wait a minute, Jesus. You want me to go walk on dusty roads, and I don't know what's been on those roads. You want me to go and stand in a crowd of people, and I don't even take sandals, and I don't get to bring a staff for protection. I don't get to bring any gold or silver or copper. So that means that I have no means to pay for any food. You're sending me out and you want me to take nothing, not even basic needs with me? Why? Why? You see, what Jesus is teaching His disciples is He is shifting their dependence. Because when they bring their own money, when they bring their own medals, when they bring their own staff, they provide their own protection, they buy their own food, and they depend on themselves. And when Jesus looks at these disciples, right as He is sending them out to do incredible things in the countryside, He says, you need to depend on me. Don't bring any money with you. Trust that I will take care of you. You don't even need to bring sandals for your feet. And He says, actually, don't even bring an extra tunic. We need to understand what He's telling them here, because it's not just, hey, just don't bring an extra tunic of clothes. You see, during this time period, in the area where they're at, during the day, it was very warm. So they wore a tunic, they wore sandals, and everything was great. But then at night, the weather shifted. And while it was warm during the day, it became very, very cool in the evenings and at night. And so the extra tunic was oftentimes brought along when you were traveling and spending the night someplace to keep you warm at night. It's like putting a second layer of clothes on in order to keep you warm and to protect you from the cold weather. And so what Jesus is telling these guys is saying, listen, you don't even need to bring anything to keep you warm tonight. Jesus, what is this, a torture mission? I mean, you want to freeze us as we're going? No. Jesus says, go into these towns and depend on who I am to define who you are. And trust me. And depend on me to provide your most very basic needs. And depend on the fact that the only way to get out of this cold weather is to find a house to stay in. Now, the disciples, they don't have it mapped out where we're going to go to this guy's, we're going to travel this far, stop at this guy's house and spend the night, and then travel this far, spend the night in this guy's house. No. They're going to go and they're just going to meet broken people, sick people. They're going to heal them. They're going to cleanse them of leprosy. And so someplace along the way, they're going to need a place to stay. Jesus says, depend on me. You see, the disciples must depend on God to take care of their needs, even the most basic needs. And the truth of this morning is this. When our dependence turns to self, our Messiah becomes material. When our dependence turns to self, our Messiah becomes material. You see, it all comes down to dependency. Do we depend on ourselves to determine ourselves, or do we depend on God to make us Himself? You see, we can't follow in the footsteps that Jesus is calling us to allow Him to provide, to be faithful, and depend on Him for our needs in life if we have to wade through wardrobes and closets and mountains of clothes. We can't do it. It's a distraction. When our dependency turns to self, when we depend on ourselves to define who we are, then our Messiah, the thing that saves us, it becomes material. It becomes material. And we understand that it's not easy. I mean, Charles Swindoll, he said this one time. We must cease striving and trust God to provide that what He thinks is best, and in whatever time He chooses to make it available. But this kind of trusting does not come naturally. Hear what he says. It's a spiritual crisis of the will in which we must choose to exercise faith. A spiritual crisis of the will. It's not just an easy handover. Okay, God, I'm in. You just take care of all my needs. It's not an easy choice. It's not an easy choice to go against cultural standards and to have more and to get more and to clothe more and to define what we look like. It's not easy. But we can't follow Jesus the way that He's calling His disciples to follow if we're defining who we are based on something. Because when our dependency, when it's defined by self, our Messiah becomes material. The worst part about this is our dependency on appearance. It's found its way into the church. Our dependency on appearance, it's crept in the back door and we haven't even realized it. You see, we've set a dress code to come and worship that half of society cannot meet. We've pretty much told them if you can't dress the right way, then you can't come here. And here's the truth. If broken people can't come to our church because they don't have the right clothes, then we don't have the right Jesus. If we're telling people that you can't come here and meet Jesus because you don't have the right clothes, then we're not following the Jesus of the Bible. We're following the standard that we have set to come to Jesus, and therefore made our dependency self. Some of us think, no, we've not done that. Well, Think of it this way. If there was someone who were to walk into church one day and sit down and get ready to worship, they just had a dirty tank top, shorts on, flip-flops. Maybe the tank top wasn't super appropriate, they were dirty. What would the first thought be? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, they couldn't wash after going to church today. Didn't they have anything else to wear? It's not the most appropriate thing to be wearing to church. They surely could have washed their feet, right? Before they put on their sandals. My guess is that most of those things were jumping into our mind long before. I'm so glad that they get to meet Jesus. Because they didn't meet a dress code. We dismissed their hearts. When we come to worship, it's not about our shirt, it's not about our skirt, it's not about the jeans that we're wearing or the suit and tie that we came in. It's about our heart condition. And sometimes I think that we need to worry more about the condition of our heart than the condition of our appearance when coming into worship. Because when our dependency turns to self, our Messiah becomes material. It becomes material, where we bring definition to our salvation based on the clothes that we have. I don't see that anywhere in Jesus' word. But when we depend on God, He paints a beautiful picture of what this can look like. And He brings promise to our life. In Matthew chapter 6, beginning in verse 28, and Jesus preaching His Sermon on the Mount, He's addressing some controversial topics for society during that day. And He comes right to the forefront of this outward appearance in verse 28. He's talking about worry, which we're going to jump into here in a couple weeks. But He says this, halfway verse 28. He says, see how the lilies of the field grow? They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all of his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will He not much more clothe you with your little faith? Listen, I'm not inside the mind of a plant, but here's what I know about a lily of the field. Okay, lilies, they don't grow thinking, are all my petals in the right spot? And lilies don't grow thinking, am I green all the way around? Am I standing straight? Is the sun hitting me in just the right place? They don't care. They grow and they become the very thing that God just created them to be. And what are they? They're beautiful. They don't labor or spin. They don't stress out and worry on their appearance in the field. Do I match up to all the other lilies over on this side of the fields? I don't care. They're a plant. They're beautiful. And God can spend that much time designing and painting the beauty of a flower. How much more does He care about the people that He created in His own image? And how often we forget and dismiss that and depend on what we make ourselves look like more than who He designed us to be. Our dependency turns to self. Our Messiah becomes material. I heard of a preacher who one day he wanted to challenge his church a little bit. And so one day he decided that he was going to dress up as a homeless man. And he cut his hair and he put on a wig and he shaved, put dirt on his face, bought real old clothes, brought bags. He made a sign. And he sat out at the driveway of his church entrance. And he sat there with his sign kind of hunched over, bags around him. And one by one, the people of his church, he watched turn and drive into the parking lot, park, and then come in and sit down and worship. over and over and over again. One car after another just pulled and drove right by him. Came in for worship. 95% of his church drove in, sat down. Every once in a while there would be a car that would slow down, throw some change out the window, or maybe hand him a dollar bill. But not one person ever stopped and got out of their vehicle to talk. And so when church started, worship was done, it was time for him to get up on stage and deliver the message for the day. And there was no one on stage. There was an awkward pause in the worship center until one of the back doors opened. And this homeless man walks up on the stage. And everyone in the crowd has no idea what's going on. Until he takes off his hat and he takes off his wig. He sets it down on the stage. The whole church realizes that they had just driven by their own ministry seat. And he looked out at the crowd and he said this. He said, there's no one in this church that cared about me. And there's no reason other than how I went. He said, there's no one in this church that ever invited me to Jesus today because of how I went. See, when our dependency becomes self, then our Messiah becomes material. When we worry about the clothes that we wear, more than how we present our hearts to Jesus, we are saved by self, which means we can. Last week, the challenge after the message was eat 7 foods 1 week. This week, there's a challenge as well. On the back of your bulletins, and you will see that there are blanks for 7 items. 7 items. Here's the challenge for this week, and then I'll clarify a few questions. Okay? In order for us to decrease, to reduce, in order to replace it with Jesus. That's the whole point of this whole series. We're reducing the excess in life, replacing it with Jesus. And so therefore our relationship with Him grows. Here's the challenge. Okay? Is that you're to pick 7 articles of clothing. And that's what you're going to wear for this week. Okay, now wait, before you think I'm crazy. Okay, this does not include undergarments, and we'll leave it at that, okay? It does not include undergarments. Okay, so that's a free pass. If you have to wear a uniform to work, because I know there's a bunch of us, there's a bunch in the church that do. If you have to wear a uniform to work, like a designated uniform, not work clothes, okay, but a designated uniform, that counts as 1. Okay, we'll give you that. Okay, some have asked, okay, what about shoes? Do shoes count? Here's the deal with shoes. Okay, you get to pick 2 pair of shoes that count as 1. After that, every pair of shoes you pick count as 1. Okay? And so you can get 2 shoes for the price of 1. After that, everything gets another item. Okay? Now, okay, just a few things that have even come up since first service. If you work out, okay, and you have workout clothes, tough. Okay? If you have to wear nice clothes or dress your clothes to work, but not a uniform, and then you like to come home and change, tough. All right? All right? Choose wisely. The idea here is not to punish, okay? The idea here is not to punish, okay? We get to choose, once again, you have to shift your focus. We get to choose 7 articles of clothing, okay? I could have said, you need to wear the same thing all week. Okay, now what this does include as well, it includes accessories, like jewelry, okay? We'll let you wear your wedding ring, okay? Because that's a whole other sermon series, okay? We'll let you wear your wedding ring, okay? But outside of that extra jewelry, all that jazz, no. Unless you write it down tonight. Okay, scarves, jackets, everything like that, all counts. All counts. So choose wisely. Pick 7. Okay, write them down. And those are your options for the week. Okay? Now, I'm going to admit, okay? I'm going to admit that this week, I will break this under one condition. Okay? if someone in our church dies or someone wants to get married. Because there's no way on God's green earth I'm writing down a suit on here. And that's the only time I wear it. Okay? Just to clarify before someone gets upset. Okay? Here's why this challenge is happening. Okay? If you have your 7 items for the week, and that's what you're wearing, you're most likely going to have some more time in the morning when you're getting ready. If you're not shuffling through clothes and moving through closets to figure out what you're going to wear, then you have more time in the morning. Or maybe that happens for you at night. Okay, maybe you set your stuff out for the next day the night before. Then you have some more time in the evening. Okay, during that time, while you reduce, replace. This week we talked about Jesus training the disciples and giving them an example to follow. So this week, as you reduce, replace that with getting to know Jesus. And pick one. Maybe this week pick one of the stories of Jesus, like Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. Okay, and you read through that, and the extra time that you have that is not spent rifling through clothes and getting all sorts of stuff. Let this week be an experiment in your house, where it's not just, I gotta wear this same button-down shirt again. Okay? But it's, hey, I'm going to wear this, and I'm going to get to know the Jesus that I'm trying to follow this week. Let God's word be your reward for this challenge. Let it become a refreshment to outweigh the frustration of having to do laundry, maybe a third time, for the same clothes. Let Jesus become the one that we depend on this week, not the clothes that we wear. Let's get to know him this week so much that we allow him to define us and not what our appearance looks like. So that way, our dependency is not on stuff. It's not on what we look like. It's not how we define ourselves. Our dependency this week is on Messiah. And Jesus who loved us, who saves us, who gives us grace, and who wants us to learn who he is.